I began doing this by accident. I was out in our back woods. I was painting some trillium and natural growth in early spring in upstate New York. And I was just sitting there painting away, and I finished, a 9x11 or 10x12 painting, and I looked at it and I thought, ooh, this has none of the energy. It's so flat. It doesn't look like anything I see before me. And I was disappointed with myself. I thought, oh, this is so sort of mundane, a trillium is a flower. And with that, I started to notice that parts of the painting were more interesting than other parts, and I started to cut. And then I kind of got interested in this, and I started cutting up an image and reweaving parts of it elsewhere in the painting. And I liked what was happening because the crisscross over-under gives a very dynamic kind of animated surface to the image. So there was movement to everything that was missing in my original piece. In a sense, you can't live in upstate New York, in the country, the way I do, without being in love with the natural landscape. Just around us, my dog walks are just overwhelmingly gorgeous. And the same is true for where we live, because we live out in the country, and our land is just beautiful. Subject matter can range from the natural landscape to the minutiae of plant life to pop culture objects, I'd say. I've done a whole series of American flags. I love to do water. I think it's hugely challenging. And there are many other subjects out there that I have yet to get my hands on. The way I create these paper weavings is I first do something very conventional. I paint a painting. Paint it fairly spontaneously because watercolor lends itself to that. And once I have one painting done, I essentially eyeball it and I do a second painting, somewhat close to the first. So therefore, I have two independent paintings of what look like very close or if not identical subject matter. And then I take that first painting, because it's usually the first that's my keystone, and I cut it on the vertical into strips. So then I take my scissors and I cut the other way. I cut across the second image on a horizontal direction, and I keep doing that, and I can be very intuitive with that. And as I cut them, I generally plate them, every other one, into the matrix of the vertical image. And by the time I'm finished, I have something that looks like a paper doily almost, or a table mat, because it's a crisscross of watercolor paper, and then I'll essentially paste it down to an archival mat board of a given color that will complement this crisscross plated weaving. I like the idea that when you look at these weavings, you're basically looking at that moment where nature essentially presents itself for a second or so, because it's all about dynamism and movement, and therefore there isn't necessarily a classic focal point where everything vectors into it with nice, quiet spaces around it. I demand of people's eye a little bit more energy.